Welcome to Jemba Africa, the voice of Africa, where we tell our own stories by ourselves. Today, can you tell us what's actually happening here that we are wearing this?
Yeah, we came here today for the celebration of Africa Day in Ireland. And being Africans, proud ones at that, we had to come, representing our roots, our home. It's easy to identify us once you look at us, unlike when I'm putting on what I would call mufti. So proudly we came here to mark the 2025 version of Africa Day in Balbriggan, Ireland.
Oh, okay. Before I proceed to ask you a few questions about Africa, can you please tell the viewers who you are and where you come from so that they know who is talking?
Oh, that's fine. My name is Vincent Ihe Sinulo. I'm from Abia State, Obingwa to be precise. Isbo Nwafo Aba or Nwangwa, Yeah, but I live here in Dublin. That's where I live and work with my family.
Oh.
And it's my pleasure to be here celebrating this African Day in Ireland today.
Thank you. To start with, how long have you been living here in Ireland?
Well, I haven't been here for quite long. Been here for 2 years. Yeah, I've been living in Italy, before we moved to Ireland.
Okay. As an African, can you give us a little bit of your experience as an African living in diaspora, like living abroad? Just what is it that you have experienced, both the negative or the positive ones? It doesn't matter.
Well, the story could make a whole book, if I have to start telling the story. But all in all, it's fun. It's quite exciting. It's enlightening because in whatever you do, you learn from your mistakes, for the future. And basically what we're doing at this stage is trying to make way for our children who are coming up so they can have a better life than we did. We left our country. We know our country, things are not very, the way we want it to be back home because of poor leadership.
Yeah.
And here, it's not perfect 100%, but it's a lot better than home because of responsible leadership. The government cares for the people, unlike what we have back home. And that's actually the reason most people are, jackpying today, out of Nigeria. And, in my own case particularly, my family has been living in Italy and me in Nigeria. I'm a patriotic Nigerian. I never wanted to leave Nigeria. And I always told myself, we die here in Nigeria, we stay and fix it. But, successive leadership, governments, they come and one becomes worse than the previous one. The other one comes and becomes worse. We complained against Jonathan. Jonathan left. Buhari came and became worse. Tinubu has come now and has made a saint of Buhari. So, when you see stuff like that, you could have money, all the money you want in Nigeria, but that money cannot buy you guarantee good health care, good roads, and the basic things, necessities of life. And, it is in search of the better life that we leave the country, travel out to, So in my own case, I left and joined my family in Italy, and from Italy, we moved to this place because there are different challenges you encounter, when you get to different places. In Italy, you have to learn the language. To be able to fit into the system, you have to become perfect in the language. But here, we were educated in English language, so it's easy to hit the ground here running, like they say.
That brings me to another question. What do you think is the major problem of Africa?
I think I've mentioned it. It's leadership, basically. Leadership. Then after that, followership. Because there are people who know that between Peter Obi and Bola Tinubu during the elections, that Peter Obi was a better candidate. But because he comes from a certain part of the country where they don't want to see, they chose to vote a less competent person, than the one who appears to be more competent with better records. And today here we are, suffering. So it's poor leadership, poor followership. But I think the poor leadership actually, ensure that the people are hungry. So basically, you'll see someone is going to die, but he would want to eat first. And that's why you could pay someone, people could afford to sell their votes, accept money to sell their votes, and to vote whoever they, regardless of the person's background and everything. So poor leadership has kind of enslaved us with hunger, poverty of the mind, poverty of the body, poverty of the pocket, like socially, economically, physically, and otherwise. So when it is like this, people can't even reason straight anymore. All they have to do is they just want to survive for the day. Tomorrow can take care of itself. So that's why people can afford to go during the voting. You give them 10,000, they sell their vote, not minding that these votes, they're going to suffer it for the next 4 to 8 years. That's the problem.
So if you are giving Africa, or maybe Nigeria, to rule for 1 hour, for 1 hour, what is the first thing you will stop in order to make Africa move forward?
Actually, 1 hour is too small. Even 4 years is not enough. 1 hour is too small. But if you ask me, in 1 hour, I will order the arrests and execution of all the bad politicians.
Our leaders
who are still alive that kept us where we are today.
Really?
Yes. That's the first thing. Within 1 hour, you say, get them arrested, try them, jail them, execute within 50 minutes.
You think that will solve the problem of Africa?
Yes, when they are out now. If you fight corruption, PW says corruption, the best way to fight corruption is first, it starts with you.
Yeah.
You eliminate the source, then others will follow. Because you as the leader, once they see that you're not corrupt, every other person will follow. Like if Tinubu was punishing people, for instance, who's the Senate president in Nigeria? Tinubu, first of all, himself, that's the number one person, has got a K-leg, a bad record. There are cases of, court cases, conviction cases, in the US out there. The Senate president, how did he become the Senate president? He's got cases with the EFCC before he became Senate president. That's the NDDC corruption case that was not successfully, prosecuted. He allegedly stole billions of, dollars in that case. And while he was, being investigated by the EFCC, he bought forms and contested for the presidency. Now, by law, by Nigerian law, you cannot run for 2 different concurrent positions at the same time. He contested for presidency, primaries in his party. And when he did not win, he went and chased away the guy who won the senatorial seat in his senatorial zone and took over that and used the court, the corrupt judiciary, to take it over. And today he's the Senate president. Now, such a person even the electoral officer who announced him as the winner is in jail, has been convicted by the court, is in jail. So the beneficiary as well should be in jail. So it is corruption which is engendered by poor leadership. Now, when all these criminals get into power, the only thing they would do is to sustain themselves in power and impoverish the country. Have they ever passed a law in our Senate? Have they ever made any law in our Senate that benefited the people? No. All they do is to, enrich themselves the more. They allocate more funds to themselves. They allocate more funds, all the benefits to themselves. It's all about them and not others. And if you stand up to speak, they plan against you and jail you. You see what this lady is going through. Senator Natasha Akpoti-Oduah, the senator who's dared to stand up against the Senate president. You speak, they come after you. So that's the way it is. You complain about a criminal, they will not go after the criminal. They will rather come after you for complaining about a criminal. So it is poor leadership, generally.
Really?
Yes. If you are not corrupt, what kind of hard work would you be doing to be able to feed 3 times a day in today's Nigeria? Check everywhere. You must be corrupt. You must be cutting corners one way or another. If you're selling petrol, you must be underselling. Maybe you're selling 5 liters, you put 4 liters for the person. You adjust your meters. No, there must be a way. People always cut.
That means this corruption has got into.
It's now part of the
now.
veins.
But if that is the case, do you think that eliminating the head?
No, you see those ones, those big ones. Once you're able to get them, because they are the ones who corrupt, they make appointments in the judiciary. When they steal from you, they molest you and they tell you to go to court, knowing that it is their appointees who are in the court. The policemen, instead of, fighting for the people, are protecting them. They all walk around with policemen. And police will assault you instead of assaulting the person who, look, the story is endless.
There is something I want to ask you about Africa in general, not only in Nigeria. Oftentimes they stereotype Africa as a very poor continent. What's your take on that?
Well, Africa is the creation of the Western countries, Britain particularly. Really? Yes. That's where we come from. Like, if you don't know where you're coming from, you wouldn't know where you're going. You see what's happening in Côte d'Ivoire, all these francophone countries who are trying to liberate themselves from the neo-colonization of France. The more they try, the more France struggles, because the more Africa remains poor, the richer some of these countries become.
Are you saying that Africa is not that poor that they made us think?
Africa is not poor. God has blessed Africa with everything. Come on, Africa has the best of weathers. Let me use Nigeria, that's my true. Country where I come from. We have the best weather for planting round the clock. Here they had to make adjustments because it rains round the clock, round the year. You have the best weather. You have sun, solar energy. Do you know what we could have done if we were banking solar? Look, with this poor light here, the panels are trapping energy. Now imagine our sunlight that shines full blast, sometimes 39, 40 degrees Celsius. What the panels could have been able to be storing. Like, there wouldn't be any generator if there was purposeful leadership in Nigeria. We'll use that. That's natural from God. Just plant solar farms all over the place. Every big building, make it mandatory. I'm sure they have this. Where I live, there's solar panels.
You are
subsidizing energy. That is one. If you have energy, steady power supply, you'll see Africa, but they won't let it happen.
You are sounding as if this corruption in Africa is actually backed by the West.
I'm not sounding like that. That's actually how it is.
Really?
It is enabled by the West. Look, I'm a civil servant. I hate to sound like an activist, but I'm talking as an African who is pained by what's going on in my motherland. Everybody rejected Bola Tinubu at the polls. People saw brazenly how they stole the elections, how they manipulated the elections. Till today, they don't have proof, documentary evidence that he won that election. It's all manipulations. The papers, the ballot papers say a different thing, the results say a different thing. Now, if let's say United States, for instance, or the West, who, claim to be all righteous and all that, if they were really interested in the progress of Africa, Bola Tinubu wouldn't be president today. He wouldn't be president because they would have come down hard with sanctions or threats of sanctions on Nigeria until the right thing was done. There were cases. People actually brought up those cases, criminal cases against Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the American courts before the elections and after the elections. What killed it? America killed it because they actually said that Tinubu was an asset to them. And you don't blame America. That's how they survive. That's how they survive. That's their own survival strategy, because for them to survive, Africa has to be poor. And what they prefer to have is a leader with K-leg who would easily be manipulated by them. Like, if you're holding someone by the jugular and say, if you don't do this, I have this rope, I'll strangle you, the person will do your bidding.
Yeah.
That's the way it is with Tinubu. So they will look the other way. We are complaining, everybody's complaining. They look the other way. But once Tinubu begins to go against the interest of America, America would come up with new strategies to just unravel who Tinubu really is.
So do you think that the West will genuinely support Africa to grow?
Genuinely. Come on, you listen to the news, you see the news, you see what goes on. Trump came in and dismantled all the, what's it called? The agents, the so-called NGOs, USAID, that are supposedly helping Africa with financial aids. For how long have they been doing that? For how long have they, how much have they succeeded? Every year it's the same thing, spending money. But you hear people say, even the former chief of army staff, say that foreign NGOs actually help sponsor terrorism. Because you lock up all the sources of funding of those, terrorists in Nigeria. Now they still have access to the best of weapons that are better than that of Nigerian military. How do they come? So it's possible. I'm not saying that's what happens, but it is possible that's what happens.
Well, thank you for your time. Because if I allow you, you are loaded. I mean,
it's annoying.
I don't know. The situation is something one cannot really explain.
It's quite frustrating. Basic security. Like you look at what's happening in Burkina Faso, the small country there, where that young man is trying to stand
Captain
up.
Traore?
Yes. Ibrahim Traore is trying to stand up to protect his people. The Western media is already labeling him a human rights abuser, that he's abusing human rights. When he kills terrorists, they say he's abusing human rights. That's the same thing they did to Jonathan, which is why they chased away Jonathan. So that's the way it is. Once you're not doing anything that favors them, and he's actually severing all the contacts that his country has with France. France is even worse than Britain. Britain is more charitable. France is worse because France controls your economy. All your money is in their bank, and they now appropriate to you. If you need some, they will say, okay, what do you need it for? And they give your money, recovered from resources in yourself. Look, God has blessed Africa with the best people. Look at you and I. But we are here. We are not contributing because it's not even possible for us to contribute our intellectual skills, whatever we have to offer. We're here, giving it to a foreign land. Now, no issues about that. But the thing is, there should be freedom. There should be possibility for you and I, incidentally from the southeast of Nigeria. You and I, we cannot compete. We are in business. Do you think it's our talent to become businessmen? Because we were chased away from the civil service. It was our forefathers who were the most educated, who held the civil service in Nigeria. Where was Nnamdi Azikiwe born as far back as 1904? He was born in Niger State, Zungeru, as far back as 1904. His own father was a civil servant working with the Nigerian Railway Service. As far back as that was before Nigeria's independence, during the colonial era. So he was educated enough to have traveled far in the north. So that is how they were all. Peter Doche, the same thing, was born in Kano. Many of them, Ojuku, many of them, like the Igbos were all over the place, but it was a nationally calculated, same thing that's happening now in Jam. Look, I don't want to start talking, I don't want to continue, because if I continue talking about Nigeria's problem, we wouldn't leave. Like they say, but if we stay here. Because look at what's happening in Jam. Jam result, just is a section. People from the south, students from the southeast, there were manipulations and their result didn't come out. Just to reduce the number of educated people from the southeast. And you would think this thing is happening in the past. It's still happening today.
Well,
look.
It's annoying, but we thank you so much for your time.
It's frustrating,
brother.
But we just have to thank God, keep surviving, do the best you can, help yourself, help your family, help your neighbor, have an open mind. Wherever you find yourself, be a good citizen. I'm sure that someday, God who created Ndibo and Africans would one day remember Nigeria and bless us with a good leader. And then we'll all be happy to go home and celebrate happily and in safety without worrying about security and bandits and people coming to kidnap you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving us your time.
Always a pleasure.
I believe anytime we'll call you again, because our viewers will one day ask again, they want to hear from you. I believe you will have time to speak with us again.
Just give me notice.
Thank you so much. Okay, viewers, you have heard it from him. This is Ojemba Africa. In case you have seen this video for the first time, and if you are not subscribed, kindly subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification button so that anytime we upload a new video, you will be first to be notified. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Have a nice day.
Uchimba Africa, telling our stories by ourselves.